SimWorld presents Around the Table with E and the Fat Man.
What's up, everybody? It's the B.O.B., and I'm here with my man E. How are you doing today, E?
I am doing fantastic, Bob. It is always good to be back on the air here with you, talking a little real world and SimWorld Hoops, and lots of different things. What do you want to chat about today, sir?
Well, on Around the Table with E and the Fat Man, I think we should dive a little bit into international topics today. What do you think?
Ooh, I like it. There is some Euro Championships going on right now in the real world out there. I actually saw Luka Doncic, of course, put up 47 the other night for Slovenia, beating a good France team. And these things aren't as high scoring as your NBA contests. 88-82, actually, Luka's 47, the second highest ever produced in a Euro Championship game. Pretty impressive. Kind of cool, too. You know, they were going back and forth being interviewed, Giannis and Luka, as far as who is the greatest international player right now. Of course, they tend to cite each other before Luka goes off there and rolls that out. But you know, that's the bright side of all of this. Now, there is a little bit of a dark lining anytime you're playing this sport. Chance of picking up an injury. Neo Gallinari tearing his ACL and out for the season while playing for Italy. Giannis even hurt himself a little bit, rolled an ankle or did something, actually. To be honest, I take that back. He didn't roll the ankle. I've seen the video. It's unclear what he did, but he came up gimpy a little bit. But apparently he's all right. You know, this is obviously very much of the moment in the international basketball scene, but right now or all time, Bob, do you have a set of favorite international players you can just throw off the top of your head?
I would say, yeah. I like to mix in a little bit of the old, a little bit with the new. As a 76ers fan, I think we have arguably the top international player in the world right now, and that's Joel Embiid. So he's definitely one that I would have to put up there. And that's no disrespect to Giannis or that other guy over there for Denver, who's stolen 2 MVPs in a row from him.
Yeah.
I'm still going to kind of stick with my Sixers fandom and Mutombo. I'm a big defensive guy, so Mutombo is definitely one up there. And I would say if I had to go with the top 3, it's going to be a weird one. At least I think it's going to be a weird one. Ilgauskas. He was for something about I always liked him. He was never really a star. He wasn't the guy that you were going to have lead your team, but he did everything. He did everything, and from my understanding, he was a great person off the court too. So I would say that's probably Joel Embiid, Mutombo, and Ilgauskas are probably my top 3 international players.
I like that, and yeah, Big Z was his prime only lasted a few years, but he was definitely a force while he was there. And it's also kind of makes me think just the depth of great international players we had, because you're throwing guys out there and it's like, oh, I should have thought about Embiid. I should have thought about Mutombo. But if I'm picking my 3, and to be fair, I didn't ask who is your best all time. I asked for your personal favorite, and that's what I'm going to give to. You mentioned Giannis, and he has to be on there for me. Just ridiculously sized to have that kind of skill set. I love watching him play. He's great. But the other 2, well, this other one might be on a best of, if we're doing truly best of all time, top 3 too. But Arvida Sabonis. Going back to the 1980s, big Lithuanian, played for the Soviet national team center. Arvydas was like a legit 7'3", about 275 pounds. So I don't even know that there's a good comp for him. I mean, his size and weight, a little taller than Shaq, a little less heavy than Shaq, but in that kind of neighborhood. Yet, I really encourage everybody to go out there to watch some YouTube videos of him. You, of course, know DeMontis, so you know the family history there. Arvydas, the closest comp I could throw out there is, imagine taking, he certainly wasn't Larry Bird, but imagine taking 50% of Larry Bird's skills and putting them in a 7'3", 280-pound body. And that was kind of Arvydas at his prime. Just amazing player to watch. But if I'm picking a 3rd to round it out, Look, Bob, I know anybody that's listened or read much of my work in SimWorld knows that I am a open Indiana Hoosiers fan and homer. And the third player I have to roll out there is Uwe Blop. Uwe Blop. Let me explain because I know, yeah. And it's, first of all, it sounds like I'm saying a name spelled B-L-A-P. That is how I'm pronouncing it, but it's spelled B-L-A-B, by the way. Uwe was a 7'2" German who played for the Indiana Hoosiers, late 70s, early 80s, had a brief NBA career. And the really special thing about Uwe is that I swear to God, his hands were made of stone. He couldn't catch anything. But if the ball ended up in his possession, fair chance of him dunking it, at least getting it out to somebody else like a Steve Alford who could shoot. So those are my three that I'd pick.
Yeah.
Let's finish up the real world part of this, getting a little bit of SimWorld Global discussion. But before we do that transition, I'm curious. What's your rooting interest, Bob? Do you pay much attention to USA basketball? Are you following it? And it's okay to admit if you don't here, I think.
I struggle. So I will always root for USA anything in everything. It's hard to it's hard to want to follow a team when the stars aren't really there anymore. Like, I'm not saying there aren't really good basketball players, but gone are the days of Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan.
Sure,
Kobe,
the dream team.
Kobe, Shaq, LeBron, things like that. Like we send our B team over, I would say, and it's hard to really care about it when you know all the best players are sitting at home, because maybe like with Gallinari and with Giannis rolling his ankle, like I can see why the big guys don't want to, but if I was in that position, I would want to be there for my country and everything and really put on the best show that I can. But yeah, I root for him, but I don't follow him as much as I used to.
Fair enough. Hey, look, my quick answer to this question on the same topic is I pay attention during the Olympics, mostly. Yeah. And other times, I read, I follow. I mean, I'm willing to watch high-level basketball wherever it's played. But yeah, for the rooting side of it, I have to admit, outside of the Olympics, not following it too closely. But of course, I am, you are, we all are following the world of SimWorld Global fairly closely, and it was fun having these guys involved in the first season last year. Definitely some big name players came out of the global ranks. Maybe I'll let you go first, Bob. Don't want to steal thunder here. Start throwing out some of my favorites. Was there anybody from the global SimWorld International lineup that really caught your eye last season?
Just in general, first off, I just want to say I feel bad for some of these guys because obviously the international teams didn't get as much love last year as the American teams did. Fortunately, we're not going to have that issue this year since we have brought in there's no more SimWorld Global or anything. It's all one thing. So we're going to get to see them play just as much as we're going to get to see Tyson Simpson play. So I love that. In general, my favorite player I actually had two, Kasparov and Edgar Fernandez. They were just two very exciting players, unselfish players. Kasparov really put his team on his back and did everything that he could. He did everything that he could to really lead them to a title.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for them, not unfortunately in general, Africa just had way too much size.
It was World East just making a run to get to that final game, which was really fueled by Kasparov, was super impressive. But Africa coming on last year, long, got vertical, a lot of athletes on that side. One of my favorites, what's interesting, he didn't put up that, the kind of numbers just statistically that you would have expected given the pedigree of just watching him and just looking at him and being like, oh, that's a player. But Bakario Bekpa of Africa He did finish top 10 among globals in terms of blocks per game and also in dunks. Loads of talent there. Going to University of Houston, joining Tristan and Carl Holmes and loads of other talent that Kelvin Sampson's assembled there in Texas. But I think the kid's got a bright future, Obekpa. I just enjoyed watching him in the Africa games I covered. And, there were a few other guys like that who didn't maybe quite hit the statistical marks that we had some hopes of them getting to, but still should have bright futures. Marcelo Dochioni, a big name there, number 1 ranked international player for most of the year. Second in points made, second in threes made among globals, going to Real Madrid. So there's a little bit of a European talent pipeline getting involved in that too. But also another European played on the World West squad, David Droffin. Actually dropped out of the rankings, really didn't read expectations, but still ended up top rebounder by quite some margin, actually, in the global game, averaging 9.2. His future is unclear, but I think whatever it's in, if we're talking on the court, I gotta think it's bright.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nocioni was I don't know what happened, but there was just such a huge drop off from the beginning of the year to the end of the year.
I think we all had expectations for Europe in general that were probably set too high, and Europe and Marcello as the leader just couldn't reach them is what happened.
Yeah, they started with 5 ranked players.
Yeah.
And it's just because when it comes to international basketball, when it comes to sections of the world, Europe is probably the next biggest next to the United States. That you think of at least. And it just... having the 5 ranked players, that was obviously a mistake, but hey, that's what preseason rankings are for. But yeah, he was not able to elevate Europe like what was expected. I do think another player that didn't get as much love, Nico De La Rosa. I feel he was one of those, in my opinion, he's a complete player. He didn't do anything in particular great. But he did everything good enough. And good enough. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, you're absolutely right in that he's an all-around talented player, good defensively. The guy's a good baseball player. He's not just basketball scouts; it's MLB scouts looking at him. But actually, the one thing, if there's one thing that he does excel at, certainly at least going by the numbers, we're talking about a 6'5" point guard who averaged more than 6 assists a game for South America last year. Just crazy. His future is still undecided. And he's the equivalent of a senior. He's exhausted his eligibility. It's time for him to decide what he's going to be doing. Really curious to see where he ends up. And I mentioned that Hoosier fandom thing earlier. I think there's a spot for him in Bloomington if he would care to come there.
Well, you mentioned him being a good baseball player. If it's a financial thing, obviously baseball is it's the least hard on your body. Least hard on your body, and you get the most amount of money. I mean, I could see him going.
You get it quickly too.
Absolutely.
You don't have to wait. You don't have to be an amateur for any amount of time. But well, we're talking about some of these players with eligibility expired. But there's some guys that were just 16 years old. We got to see and shine on the global level last year. I think Latin America probably is your kind of Europe for this next season in terms of being the SimWorld global side that people have the highest expectations for. And that's because of Edgar Fernandez, right?
Absolutely.
Top scoring player on the global side, more than 20 points a game. Reason why schools like Kentucky are looking to add him to their squads. But in the preseason or pre-roster announcement rankings, they're 9th of the 32 total teams in the top 10. And, maybe we're expecting too much again from our top global squad. Maybe they'll end up disappointing, and it'll be our fault because we ranked them too high. But somebody like Fernandez coming back and that Latin American talent base, I think it's a pretty fair rating.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of those players. To me, he was the international version of, I'm not going to say he has this much talent, but he was the international version of CKC last year. He was just so far above and beyond anything else that the international squads were able to give us. It was Edgar Fernandez and everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, all of the 16-year-olds coming back. There's actually a good crop of 16-year-old guards because, I'm thinking, well, our global champion from last season, Africa, they're middle of the pack in the SimWorld rankings right now, coming in at number 19. But they do have AJ Fabenle coming back, and he averaged more than 14 points and almost 5 assists per game for them last year, was the only 16-year-old equivalent of a high school junior, think of it that way, to play for Africa last year, and he was a key cog. So they have to really reload, but at least there's that one nice piece there to bring back to, hopefully keep Africa on the rise in the global game.
Yeah, and I think where the world is really seeing the talent that Africa has when it comes to basketball, yeah, they're going to have a lot to replace, but they're going to have, without a doubt, they're going to have a size advantage. They are huge over there, and they're going to be raw. They're going to have their bumps early on. Maybe they're going to look like they're not that good, but they're just going to build some time, build their time together. Their size is going to be a huge issue, just like it was last season when they went on to defeat the SimWorld High School Hoops champions.
And you are correct, too, that they got off to something of a slow, sloppy, disjointed start to the year, but by the end of the season, we're really playing well. We're a threat to play against anybody, U.S. or global, they came on the court with. There's a final team coming back, bringing a star guard, and that is Middle East's Omar Haddadi. Again, just 16 years old, but lit it up for Middle East last year, provided a really big shooting spark for them. Middle East comes into the year ranked at 26, so they are back of the pack, but in spite of having Haddadi return, I think that's pretty fair. Middle East has to reload the way that every team has to reload, and they lost Israel. We had all of those Israeli players really helped Middle East overachieve a little bit last year, and that talent pool is gone. So Haddadi returns, yes, but some talented player pool goes away. Not too surprised to see them at the back of the pack. And actually, Global's still fighting for respect, and that's made clear by the fact that Asia Pacific and Oceania are the last two ranked teams of our preseason ranking. Asia Pacific number 31, Oceania number 32. APAC really only bringing Akira Suzuki, decently skilled guard out of Japan, who is coming back for an APAC team that struggled. And then Oceania, formerly known as World East, former home to Boris Kasabov, who's taken his talents to the Ukrainian Super League. Mentioned they made that surprising run to get to the Global Championship game last year, but Kasabov's long gone.
Yeah.
Everybody's long gone from that team. They probably are going to crash back to earth pretty hard. But this does also show you, like I said, global game still fighting for respect in the real world and in SimWorld.
Yeah, that's losing Kasabov is such a big loss for them. They are, I don't want to call them next year's Atlanta, because Atlanta is still here and Atlanta is gonna Atlanta. So,
yeah.
But
next year's Seattle is the actual reference to make anyway.
There you go. But yeah, they're him leaving is such a huge loss. I can't wait to see him if he decides to come over here for professional basketball. I would hope to see him, see what he can do, see if he can be the next great international player.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, we talked a lot about the players, a lot about our SimWorld, the young kids that are going to be probably standing out a little bit. Hopefully some that aren't going to disappear. I am worried that we're going to have some that we were really hyped up on disappear and disappoint a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a sophomore slump because they're going to be seniors, but I really hope we don't see a sophomore slump from the likes of Fernandez. One of my favorites, Patricio Ramirez. I do hope that they are able to keep their heads above the water, but that's enough basketball talk, I think, at least. Talking about international, I will say I have never been anywhere but America. Well, I think you're a bit of a traveler, aren't you?
I've been around a little bit. I've been lucky in that I lived for a little bit in London. Lived and worked over there for a few years, and
Sorry.
in general, I've gotten to travel a little. So yes, definitely true.
Is there?
I don't have to apologize to me though.
I just apologize that you were in London for so long. But anyways, is there anywhere that you have wanted to visit or plan on visiting?
So yeah, I mentioned I did live in Europe, and look, I'll tell you that the years I lived over there, the one great thing about it is that, well, I mean, actually, London is great. I had a good time over there, but it's the equivalent of catching a Southwest flight, from Chicago to Detroit to go from London to Berlin or to
Yeah.
Madrid or to whatever. Like, it's all pretty close over there, so it's easy to get around. And yeah, I've been fortunate. I got to go to more than a few places during my time there. But if you're asking me to name, I'll do two things. Here's what I'll do. Favorite play or where haven't I been? Always on my mind to go to. New Zealand is always at the top of my list.
Okay.
Definitely New Zealand. It just seems like it's, alien planet down there, but very green, very kind of natural setting to be into. Would love to go there. And as far as the places I have been, if I had to pick two that are my absolute favorites, I'll pick two that are different, very different. And one is going to be Venice in Italy. Just a cool, wild, different kind of place to be, being on the canals. I have some friends that live there too, and anytime you can visit some place where you got local people on the ground, that's definitely the way to do it.
Oh yeah.
But the other one I will mention, very different part of the world, very different setting, but I live it there too. Costa Rica in Central America. Just again, nature wonderland. Very cool place to visit. Not on necessarily everybody's radar or map, but if you get an excuse to go, have the opportunity to go, highly recommend checking out Costa Rica.
Oh, definitely sounds like it's a little too hot there for me.
Hey, it's been 100 degrees along the shoreline here in California the past week, so
no thank you.
I know, not been good. No, we're not prepared for that. So
the furthest international that I've ever been is I lived in Florida for about 8 years when I was growing up, and that's I don't want to go anywhere that's any hotter than that because that was terrible. But a big thing that I do want to do someday is I wanted to go over and just see I want to visit like Auschwitz and stuff. I want to do those types of things. I was a big history guy.
on the history side, yeah.
I was a big history guy thanks to my history teachers in high school. They were all of them every year. They were my favorites. They were my favorite teachers. I initially went back to college to be a history professor. I changed that up though. I was a big history guy, and I heading to Auschwitz and just all of that stuff just really fascinates me, and it's something that I want to do some days. Hopefully, in like the winter months when maybe it's snowing a little bit.
Yeah, no, should definitely go on a history tour in someplace old world like that. I mean, on the history side of things, from being over there, I got to visit Rome and Jerusalem, and that's kind of,
Yeah,
as much history as you could possibly get
absolutely,
between those two cities.
absolutely.
Well, I think this podcast is about to come to its history is about to be. I don't know. What's my phrase there? I had something. I was going for something.
You
I
had it,
get close.
but you lost it.
I had it and I lost it. Well, this podcast is history. There.
There it
Hey, I
is.
got it
We
out.
got
Look
it.
at
Cha-ching.
that. But thank you as always, Bob. Great to work with you,
Thank
as
you.
it always is.
Yeah.
And SimWorld will be out there seeing you again next weekend. In the meantime, stick on the Discord. We'll be talking to you on there soon.
Be good, everybody. Have a good rest of your weekend.